Sophie Carter's life was shattered the day her 7-year-old daughter, Emma, vanished without a trace while innocently playing in her own bedroom. Months of despair followed, with no answers or leads, until one ordinary night, Sophie stumbled across something unbelievable on Google Maps. In a random street image captured hundreds of miles away, she recognized her daughter holding the same beloved green teddy bear Emma never parted with. But who was the mysterious elderly man beside her, and why had Emma never returned home? The desperate search for answers will take Sophie on a suspenseful journey, revealing secrets darker than she ever imagined. Sophie Carter had always loved the gentle way sunlight filled her daughter's room each afternoon. Warm rays filtered softly through curtains embroidered with tiny pink flowers, casting playful patterns across the walls painted in delicate shades of lavender. Everything about this space spoke of joy, innocence, and the tender bond between mother and child. Emma, Sophie's 7-year-old daughter, was sitting cross-legged on the fluffy white rug, carefully arranging a tea party for her beloved teddy bear, Mr. Green. The bear's faded green fur and the small patch sewn onto its belly hinted at years of affectionate cuddles and whispered secrets. "Would you like more tea, Mr. Green?" Emma asked in her gentle, melodic voice, pouring invisible tea into a tiny porcelain cup. Sophie smiled warmly, watching from the doorway. Her daughter's laughter was the sweetest melody she'd ever known, a soothing balm for her own anxious heart. Emma's imagination was vast and vivid, often pulling Sophie into magical worlds where there was only happiness and safety. Sophie, now 32, had built her life around Emma, working as a freelance illustrator from their small but cozy house in the peaceful outskirts of Bristol. She had chosen solitude after a turbulent marriage to Richard Carter. Brief flashes of memory still haunted her, his charm masking darker intentions, manipulative words, and cold stares that chilled her to the bone. Leaving Richard had been difficult, but necessary for Emma's safety. Sophie still struggled with lingering anxiety and self-doubt, remnants of the emotional turmoil he'd inflicted. Drawing had become her escape. Sketches filled every corner of their home, capturing happier moments or calming her during episodes of quiet panic. "Mummy, will you join us?" Emma's bright eyes lifted, interrupting Sophie's drifting thoughts. "Of course, sweetheart," Sophie replied, stepping into the room and settling gently beside her daughter. She mimed sipping tea from the miniature cup Emma handed her, exchanging giggles over exaggerated gestures. Moments like these felt sacred, as if nothing could ever disturb their peace. As their laughter softened, Sophie glanced at the clock. "I'll just pop into the kitchen to start dinner. Keep Mr. Green company for me." "Always," Emma said, earnestly, hugging the bear tightly to her chest. Sophie stood, lightly touching Emma's soft hair before leaving the room. Entering the kitchen, she began preparing their favorite meal, simple pasta with fresh tomatoes. Her movements were automatic, humming softly as she worked. But even in this quiet routine, a shadow lingered in the corner of her mind. A whisper of worry she had learned never fully faded away. After only a few minutes, Sophie wiped her hands and returned to Emma's room. She pushed open the door, already smiling, expecting to find Emma engrossed in her game. Instead, she faced an eerie silence. The room felt immediately, impossibly empty. "Emma?" Sophie's voice trembled slightly, eyes darting around the room. The tea set lay untouched. Mr. Green had vanished along with her daughter. "Emma, sweetheart, are you hiding?" Panic edged into her voice, thin and brittle. She rushed through the house, calling Emma's name louder each time. She checked closets, under beds, and behind furniture, her movements increasingly frantic. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. As she threw open the front door, scanning the street desperately. Nothing. No laughter. No footsteps. No trace of Emma. Tears blurred Sophie's vision as she dialed emergency services. Her voice cracked, raw with panic, pleading with the operator for immediate help. When the police arrived, their calm professionalism felt almost offensive against her own frantic desperation. Officers began a careful, methodical search. Neighbors gathered, faces lined with worry, answering questions patiently. But no one had seen anything unusual. Hours turned to days, and days stretched painfully into weeks. Flyers bearing Emma's smiling face adorned every street corner, becoming faded reminders of Sophie's worst nightmare. Investigations intensified, but led nowhere. The trail was cold. Emma had simply vanished. Sophie descended into a fog of despair. The once comforting home became unbearably empty. She began compulsively drawing sketches of Emma, of Mr. Green, of every place she could remember them together, attempting to hold on to any fragment of hope. Sleep eluded her, replaced by relentless guilt and anxiety. Every passing moment was torture. 7 months passed slowly, painfully. Life dragged itself forward, though Sophie felt suspended in time. Encouraged by concerned friends and therapists, she attempted a fragile return to routine. Even mundane tasks felt monumental. One rainy evening, Sophie sat numbly at her desk, distractedly clicking through Google Maps Street View, looking aimlessly at familiar places and faraway cities, a small habit she had developed to temporarily escape her grief. As her eyes scanned through a busy street in Manchester, something caught her attention. A flash of green amidst the dull urban scene. Heart suddenly racing, she clicked closer, zooming in frantically on the image. There, clearly captured by chance, by the passing Google car, was a small girl. Sophie's breath caught sharply, her heart nearly stopping. She recognized instantly the posture, the way the small fingers curled tightly around a worn, faded green teddy bear. Mr. Green, Emma. She whispered, voice barely audible, the word trembling between hope and disbelief. Beside Emma, holding her hand protectively, was an elderly man Sophie had never seen before, his face partially obscured. The image felt both reassuring and deeply unsettling. Her daughter was alive, but who was this stranger? Sophie's fingers shook uncontrollably. She blinked tears away, heart pounding violently. Her mind raced, questions colliding with hope and fear. She stared endlessly at the screen, memorizing every detail of her daughter's image. Afraid it would vanish if she blinked. In that silent moment, months of sorrow shifted abruptly into something sharper, fiercer. Determination surged inside her chest. Emma was out there. She had never felt more certain. And Sophie knew, deep in her bones, she would do anything necessary to bring her daughter home. She reached for her phone, eyes still locked desperately on the screen, breath shallow, preparing to contact the police again. But beneath her fierce determination, a deeper fear churned in her stomach. What secrets lay behind this fleeting image captured by chance? Who was the mysterious old man guiding her daughter through the crowded street? And most chilling of all, why? Had Emma never come home? Sophie swallowed hard, gripping her phone tightly. This image, this fragile glimpse of hope, was only the beginning. She knew, without any doubt, her life was about to change once more, drawing her into a darkness deeper than she had ever imagined. Driven solely by a mother's unwavering love and desperation, she inhaled sharply, dialing the number with trembling fingers, ready to face whatever truth lay ahead. Sophie gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white from tension as the car navigated through Bristol's winding streets towards the police station. Outside, rain streaked across the windshield in relentless waves, mirroring the storm raging inside her. Beside her, Carefully placed on the passenger seat was a printed copy of the Google Maps image, the only tangible thread of hope she'd encountered in 7 agonizing months. Her heart pounded uncontrollably, the rhythm uneven and anxious. She rehearsed her words quietly, knowing the police had long since written Emma's case off as a cold trail. Still, Sophie was determined this time would be different. She wouldn't allow anyone to dismiss her. She couldn't dot at the police. Station Sophie entered with rapid, determined strides. The cold fluorescent lighting made everything seem harsher, colder. Approaching the front desk, she immediately spotted Officer Reynolds, the same officer who had taken her initial statement months ago. He looked up with wary recognition, a polite but forced smile crossing his face. "Mrs. Carter, what brings you in today?" His voice, professional but cautious, betrayed subtle discomfort. "Sophie," she corrected softly. I found something, a lead. I need someone to look into this immediately." Sophie carefully unfolded the printout, sliding it toward Reynolds. He glanced down briefly, eyes narrowing with skepticism. The hesitation in his gaze instantly deflated Sophie's heart. "Google Maps?" Reynolds raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Sophie, this could be anyone. It's blurry, just a coincidence." Her hands trembled, emotion rising swiftly. "It's Emma. That's her bear, Mr. Green. She never let it go." "It's her, Officer Reynolds. I know it." Reynolds exhaled. Slowly, clearly uncomfortable. "I understand how desperately you want this to mean something, but after this much time, you realize the chances. Please," she pleaded, her voice cracking. Just run this image through your system. Check the location. It's in Manchester. Someone there might have seen her." He sighed heavily, reluctantly taking the printout. "We'll look into it," he said with thin sincerity. "But please understand, this isn't a guarantee of anything." Sophie turned away silently, frustration burning in her throat. Outside, the rain continued its relentless fall, soaking her clothes as she walked back to her car. Despair clung to her like a suffocating cloak. She knew she couldn't depend on the authorities, not this time. Alone at home that evening, Sophie paced restlessly, anxiety gnawing at her chest. Her gaze fell onto the sketches scattered across her desk, drawings of Emma's smile. Her hands clutching Mr. Green, happier days preserved on paper. A thought struck her suddenly, like lightning illuminating darkness. She'd heard once of William. Bill Graham, the detective famed for his intuition, now retired after a controversial case had shattered his reputation. Bill had lived a life steeped in mysteries, obsessing over tiny details others ignored. If the police wouldn't help, perhaps he could. The next morning, Sophie drove through the quiet outskirts of Bristol, stopping before a modest house, slightly run down but neat. She knocked hesitantly, waiting anxiously until the door opened abruptly. Bill Graham stood before her, tall, wiry, his thinning hair disheveled, gray eyes sharp yet tired. He frowned, suspicious of her presence. "Whatever you're selling, I don't need it," he said curtly. "Mr. Graham, my name's Sophie Carter. I'm not here to sell anything. My daughter disappeared 7 months ago. I found a lead something. The police won't investigate properly. I need your help." Bill regarded her silently, suspicion giving way to quiet curiosity. He hesitated before opening the door wider, motioning her inside with a sigh. "Better come in then." Inside, the air smelled strongly of coffee and old paper. Books and documents cluttered every surface. A wall covered entirely in pinned newspaper articles spoke volumes of his obsessive nature. Sophie's eyes lingered briefly, realizing these were unsolved cases. Failures, haunting reminders. She handed him the image. Bill examined it carefully. Under the lamp, fingers tracing lightly over the photo. "Why do you think this blurry image is your daughter?" he asked skeptically, but not unkindly. "The teddy bear," she replied immediately, certainty in her voice. "Emma never let it go. It's him." Bill studied Sophie closely. "You really believe this, don't you?" "Yes," she whispered fervently, eyes shining with tears. "I know how it looks, but I'm her mother. It's Emma. Please help." Bill hesitated, torn between his bitterness and the sincerity in Sophie's pleading eyes. Sophie reached into her bag, producing a thick folder filled with compulsive sketches. She handed it over silently, watching as Bill flipped through page after page, dozens of drawings depicting her pain and desperation, her daughter's absence, etched meticulously in every line. "Drawing keeps me sane," she explained quietly. "But nothing can heal this emptiness. Please, you're my last hope." Bill paused, visibly moved by the raw vulnerability. Finally, he sighed deeply, nodding slowly. "Fine, I'll help you. But I can't promise miracles." Relief flooded Sophie's chest, briefly alleviating the weight of months of anguish. Together, they returned to the image, Bill meticulously studying every pixel. He enhanced and enlarged, revealing subtle details Sophie hadn't noticed, a street sign partially obscured but legible, distinctive markings on buildings, a reflection in a shop window. Bill's obsession with minutiae had begun to pay off. "Newton Street, Manchester," he announced finally. "The image was taken here." Within hours, Sophie and Bill were on their way to Manchester. Sophie stared nervously through the car window, scenes blurring past as hope and dread fought within her. Bill, silent and focused, occasionally muttered notes into a battered voice recorder, his unusual way of processing information died upon reaching Newton Street. They carefully retraced the path depicted in the image. The neighborhood buzzed with everyday life, oblivious to their desperate quest. Sophie's pulse quickened as they stopped outside a small corner shop, matching exactly the place from the photo. Inside, the shopkeeper, a friendly-looking woman in her late 50s named Margaret, listened patiently as Bill showed her the picture. Margaret squinted thoughtfully, immediately recognizing details. Her face brightened suddenly with a spark of recognition. "I know this man," Margaret said confidently, tapping her finger on the elderly figure holding Emma's hand. Sophie's heart jolted, anticipation surging through her veins. "You're certain?" Bill pressed, eyes intense. "Yes, that's Alfred Hughes. He doesn't live around here. He's from Castleton, I believe. Comes occasionally to visit relatives. Very polite man. A bit odd but harmless, I thought. Who's the little girl?" Sophie struggled to speak, her voice shaky with emotion. "That's my daughter, Emma. She's been missing for months." Margaret's expression softened sympathetically, concern etched clearly in her eyes. "Oh, my dear ... I had no idea. If Alfred's involved, you must hurry. He rarely stays in Manchester long." Bill quickly jotted down notes, immediately preparing to move again. Sophie stood frozen momentarily, her mind spinning, breath shallow with a mix of hope and fear. They had a name. Alfred Hughes. They had a place. Castleton. Sophie glanced once more at Margaret, whispering a heartfelt thank you before stepping back into the street beside Bill. Her gaze lifted to the gray sky above, raindrops beginning to fall again, softly, tapping her face. "We'll find her," Bill assured quietly, determination filling his voice. "We're closer than we've ever been." Sophie nodded silently, holding tightly onto the fragile hope now burning fiercely within her. They hurried toward the car, footsteps echoing urgently against pavement slick with rain. Yet questions lingered, dark and foreboding. Who was Alfred Hughes really? Why had he taken Emma? And most haunting of all, what awaited them in Castleton? She shivered slightly, gripping Bill's arm for support. The answers were close, but Sophie knew instinctively they would come at a price. The early morning mist blanketed the quiet village of Castleton, its ancient stone cottages and winding roads steeped in a serene silence. Sophie peered anxiously out the car window as Bill maneuvered slowly into the village center, tires crunching softly on the gravel road. Castleton seemed idyllic, a place untouched by the chaos of modern life. Yet beneath its picturesque surface, Sophie sensed something uncertain, even ominous, hovering just beyond her grasp. Bill parked near a small cafe named the Willow Tree, stepping out first. He scanned the street carefully, eyes narrowing slightly. Sophie followed, wrapping her coat tightly around her. The air felt colder here, heavy with moisture, thickening her growing sense of unease. As they approached the cafe entrance, a middle-aged woman watched curiously from behind the counter. Her eyes held a cautious wariness as she observed the strangers entering her domain. "Good morning," Bill greeted gently, flashing a practiced, reassuring smile. Sophie stood close, nervously scanning the cafe's cozy interior. The woman nodded, slowly offering a guarded half-smile. "Morning, travelers?" "Actually, we're looking for someone," Bill replied calmly. "An elderly gentleman named Alfred Hughes." At the mention of Alfred's name, the woman's expression shifted noticeably. Her smile faded instantly, eyes narrowing with suspicion. "You friends of his?" she asked sharply, voice wary. "No," Sophie quickly interjected, stepping forward urgently. "We're looking for my daughter. She was seen with Alfred recently in Manchester. We desperately need to speak with him." The woman hesitated, eyes softening slightly when she registered the worry etched deeply on Sophie's face. Still, her voice remained cautious. "Alfred's complicated. Nice enough to talk to, but folks around here have questions. He's always taking in stray kids, always claiming he's helping. But no one knows exactly where they come from or where they go." Sophie's stomach twisted anxiously. "Does anyone know where he lives?" "Edge of the village, old stone house with green shutters," she answered quietly, eyes sympathetic yet guarded. "But be careful. Alfred's friendly enough, but there's something not quite right about that man." Bill nodded appreciatively. "Thank you." Outside, Sophie turned to Bill, her voice tight with anxiety. "Do you think he might hurt Emma?" Bill shook his head, cautious but reassuring. "We don't have enough to know that yet. Let's find Alfred first, see what he's about." They reached Alfred's home within minutes, a weathered, ivy-covered cottage nestled near the outskirts of Castleton. Ancient oak trees loomed protectively overhead, their thick branches casting shadowy patterns over the stone facade. Bill knocked firmly. Silence lingered before slow footsteps shuffled behind the door. It creaked open cautiously, revealing a frail, elderly man. Alfred Hughes appeared exactly as Sophie remembered from the Google Maps image soft features, kind, but guarded eyes behind thick-rimmed glasses. "Can I help you?" Alfred asked, voice gentle, innocent confusion lining his face. "Mr. Hughes, my name is Sophie Carter. I believe my daughter, Emma, is with you." Her voice shook slightly, emotion spilling forward. "Please, I just want her back." Alfred's expression softened immediately, eyes sympathetic yet oddly distant. "Come inside," he offered quietly. Inside, the home was impeccably tidy, filled with ticking clocks of various sizes and ages, their rhythmic sounds overlapping like a heartbeat. Sophie shivered slightly, the atmosphere unsettling. Alfred sat down. Slowly, hands clasped gently in his lap. "Emma is safe, Mrs. Carter. She appeared near my home weeks ago, confused, scared, barely speaking. Claimed she didn't know who she was or how she'd gotten here. Sophie's heart leaped painfully. She's here? Where is she now? She's upstairs asleep, Alfred replied softly, his voice soothing. She's been through enough trauma. Please, allow her to rest. Sophie nearly stood up, desperate to rush upstairs, but Bill's hand gently restrained her, cautioning patience. Mr. Hughes, Bill's voice was calm, yet with a sharp undertone. Why didn't you contact authorities? Surely someone would have recognized her. Alfred's eyes hardened subtly, briefly. I've had difficult experiences with police in the past. I've cared for many abandoned children. Authorities don't always understand my intentions. Sophie felt torn between overwhelming gratitude and lingering suspicion. Alfred seemed genuine, yet something intangible disturbed her deeply. May I at least see her? Sophie pleaded softly. Alfred hesitated, then nodded slowly. Of course, but please, gently. Sophie ascended the stairs carefully, heart racing painfully. Opening the bedroom door quietly, she saw Emma curled peacefully on a small bed, clutching Mr. Green tightly. Tears welled instantly. Sophie approached cautiously, softly brushing Emma's hair. Emma stirred slightly, but remained asleep, peaceful and unharmed. Downstairs, Bill questioned Alfred quietly, eyes probing for subtle hints or contradictions. How exactly did Emma arrive here? Late evening, Alfred recalled gently, voice unwavering. She wandered into my yard holding that bear. No memories, frightened eyes. What could I do but shelter her? Bill studied Alfred carefully, noting tiny hesitations, flickers of discomfort in his gaze. You're very precise about timing, Bill observed casually, eyes drifting meaningfully toward the many clocks lining Alfred's walls. Alfred smiled weakly, eyes guarded. Precision keeps chaos at bay. That night, Sophie and Bill stayed at a small inn nearby, unable to take Emma until authorities arrived. Sophie lay awake, torn by relief and confusion. Could Alfred truly be innocent, just a kindly older man misunderstood by his community? Or was Bill correct, something darker hiding behind Alfred's gentle facade? Early morning brought chaos. Police knocked urgently, revealing Alfred and Emma had vanished. Sophie felt the ground beneath her crumble, anxiety rushing back suffocatingly. Intense. Together, Sophie and Bill raced back to Alfred's empty home. Bill's methodical eyes scanned every surface meticulously, capturing details others would overlook. Sophie watched helplessly, heart racing with renewed panic. He's gone again, Bill, with Emma. What are we going to do? Bill didn't answer immediately. His eyes were locked on an antique wooden clock sitting alone on the mantelpiece, one of Alfred's oldest and most cherished. It had stopped ticking, its delicate hands frozen precisely at 5:17 p.m. Sophie noticed Bill's intense focus. What is it? Bill exhaled slowly, voice tight with revelation. Sophie, what time exactly did Emma disappear back in Bristol? She swallowed hard, a chill coursing sharply down her spine. It was just after 5, about 1:15. Bill nodded. Grimly, turning toward her slowly, eyes filled with chilling realization. This clock, Sophie, it stopped at precisely the moment Emma vanished. Alfred knows far more than he told us. Sophie stared numbly, a storm of dread and uncertainty swirling within her. She desperately wanted to believe Alfred's innocence, but now doubt overshadowed everything. The truth she longed for was slipping farther away again, hidden within the ticking silence of Alfred's countless clocks. Bill's voice was firm, resolve solidifying. We have to find Alfred. Quickly. Whatever this man's hiding, it's more dangerous than we realized. Sophie nodded mutely, fear gripping tightly as she glanced back at the silent clock. the hands frozen in time, marking the exact instant her world had shattered months earlier. And now, as shadows stretched across Castleton, Sophie knew that whatever secrets Alfred concealed, their revelation would bring darkness before any chance of peace could return. By sunrise, Castleton buzzed anxiously with whispers and restless glances, an air of unease hanging over the usually peaceful village. Sophie stood at the edge of Alfred Hughes's property, arms crossed tightly over her chest, shivering despite the warm glow spreading across the fields. Police vehicles crowded the narrow road, their lights flashing silently, punctuating the quiet. Desperation of the scene unfolding before her dot after the unsettling discovery of the clock frozen at the precise time Emma vanished. Authorities had no choice but to renew their involvement. Alfred Hughes was now officially a suspect, his photo circulated widely, his name etched onto wanted lists. Officers combed meticulously through the old cottage, searching for any clue that might unravel Alfred's secrets, but so far he had vanished without a trace. Detective Harper, the lead officer, approached Sophie with a sympathetic but determined expression. "Mrs. Carter, I promise we'll do everything possible to locate Emma and bring Alfred Hughes into custody. You have my word." Sophie nodded weakly, trying to summon a semblance of confidence from the detective's words. Beside her, Bill stood silently, scrutinizing every small movement, every whispered conversation among the police. His eyes, sharp and restless, searched relentlessly for details others overlooked. After the police finally dispersed, Bill gently led Sophie to a small local diner. They sat by the window, sipping coffee in tense silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Bill spoke, his voice low but resolute. "We need to dig deeper into Alfred's past," he said firmly. "There must be something that ties his obsession with clocks to Emma's disappearance, and possibly others." Sophie leaned forward anxiously, her voice strained with exhaustion and determination. "You really believe he's taken other children?" Bill nodded grimly, pulling out his notes. "I've spent the morning checking police records from surrounding counties. There are several disappearances over the past decade, all involving children around Emma's age. Every case includes subtle references to precise timing and unexplained coincidences. Then why hasn't he been caught before?" Sophie asked, her heart heavy with dread. "Because Alfred Hughes knows how to disappear," Bill replied somberly. "His life revolves around precise schedules, exact movements, obsessively careful. It's no accident he was never officially linked." The bell above the diner door jingled softly. Sophie turned instinctively, her breath catching painfully as she saw Richard stepping hesitantly into the diner, his posture portraying awkward sympathy. Their eyes met briefly, stirring waves of complex emotions within her: fear, resentment, confusion. "Sophie," Richard began softly, approaching carefully, "I heard they've reopened Emma's case. I want to help." She bristled subtly, memories flooding her mind, the manipulation masked by his charming facade, the fear she'd struggled to escape. But desperation clouded her judgment now. Richard's offer felt like a fragile lifeline. Bill's gaze sharpened, distrust clear as he silently observed their interaction. "How can you help?" Sophie asked cautiously, her tone guarded. "I still have connections," Richard said smoothly, sitting opposite them. "I can talk to people, get information quietly. Please, Sophie, let me try." Reluctantly, she nodded, ignoring the skeptical glare from Bill. Richard smiled warmly, confidently. But behind the mask, Sophie glimpsed something darker, something she feared deeply. Over the following days, Richard's presence became increasingly intrusive. He hovered near Sophie, feigning emotional support, carefully gleaning details from their conversations. Sophie's discomfort grew steadily, her old anxieties resurfacing. Her instincts warned her Richard's intentions weren't as innocent as he claimed. Late one night, Sophie and Bill sat quietly in her small rented cottage near Castleton, sorting through papers detailing Alfred's movements. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, heightening Sophie's sense of urgency. "I never trusted Richard," Sophie confessed suddenly, breaking the silence. "He was charming at first, too charming, but soon I felt trapped. He controlled every aspect of my life. When Emma was born, it got worse. He saw her as another way to control me." Bill listened quietly, eyes gentle but alert. Why let him back in now? "Because he's Emma's father," Sophie admitted quietly, eyes brimming with tears. "I thought he might genuinely want to help. But I see the same old patterns. The manipulation, the subtle threats disguised as kindness. He scares me." Bill nodded slowly, reassuring her silently. "We'll handle him. Keep your distance." As the days progressed, Bill's meticulous investigation revealed unsettling patterns. Alfred's movements, precisely timed, coincided disturbingly with past disappearances. Every child he encountered vanished exactly at times mirrored by the clocks he obsessively collected. Each case bore eerie parallels to Emma's, but Alfred remained elusive. Authorities searched extensively, but each promising lead dissolved into frustrating dead ends. Late one evening, Sophie's phone rang abruptly, jolting her awake. Unknown number. Her heart raced instantly. "Hello?" Her voice trembled slightly. A breathless pause, then a familiar elderly voice spoke urgently, hushed and strained. "Sophie, it's Alfred Hughes. Please, just listen." She gripped the phone tightly, heart hammering violently. "Where is Emma? What have you done with her?" "She's safe for now," Alfred said swiftly. "But we're not safe. You must believe me, I never harmed Emma. I was protecting her." "Protecting her?" Sophie's voice cracked, confusion mixing painfully with hope. "From whom?" Alfred hesitated briefly, his voice growing panicked. "Someone close to you is the real danger, Sophie." "It was never me." Sophie froze, a chill racing down her spine. "What do you mean? Who's the real danger?" "I don't have much time," Alfred said frantically. In the background, the soft rush of flowing water echoed faintly. He must be somewhere remote. "Think carefully. Who reappeared in your life just as Emma vanished again? Who has the power and motive to manipulate you, Sophie?" Her blood ran cold. "Richard," she whispered, realization striking like lightning. Before Alfred could respond, a distant scream, Emma's unmistakable voice shattered the silence, piercing Sophie's heart with terror. "Emma!" she cried desperately into the phone. "Alfred, please, I have to go." Alfred shouted urgently, "Find us, Sophie. Near the River Derwent. Hurry." The line abruptly cut off, leaving Sophie clutching the phone, breath ragged, her entire body trembling violently. Bill stood quickly, moving close with concern. "Sophie, what happened?" "It's Alfred," she gasped shakily, tears streaming uncontrollably. "He said Richard's behind everything." Emma screamed, "She's in danger." Alfred said he's near the River Derwent. "We need to hurry." Bill immediately sprang into action, gathering maps and gear swiftly. Sophie stood frozen momentarily, her mind spinning chaotically with fear and dread. Richard's deception pierced her soul deeply, reawakening old wounds, twisting her heart painfully. Her worst fears materialized. Richard, whose dark shadow she'd struggled desperately to escape, had once again ensnared her life in anguish. But this time, Emma's life hung precariously in the balance. She glanced desperately at Bill, eyes filled with profound anguish and steely resolve. Whatever awaited at the River Derwent, she would confront it directly. Richard had controlled and manipulated her long enough. As they rushed into the night, Sophie silently vowed she would rescue Emma from the darkness Richard cast over their lives, reclaiming the peace stolen from them both. But deep within, she knew the final confrontation would be more harrowing than any nightmare she'd ever faced. The night pressed down heavily upon Sophie and Bill as they raced through the twisting, shadowy roads leading into the Peak District. The moon hung low, offering only faint illumination through thickening clouds. Every passing minute felt agonizingly slow, yet dangerously fleeting. Sophie clutched the edge of her seat, knuckles white, her breath shallow with anxiety. "Faster, Bill," she urged desperately, eyes fixed on the dark road ahead. Bill's jaw tightened in quiet determination as he pressed harder on the accelerator, guiding the car swiftly through the countryside. "We'll find them," he promised grimly, stealing a glance at Sophie's tense face. "We're close." The river Derwent soon appeared, glistening faintly beneath patches of moonlight. Its gentle, murmuring current seemed deceptively peaceful, belying the turmoil Sophie felt inside. They parked hastily near the dense woodland, grabbing flashlights and moving swiftly into the thick forest lining the riverbank. The woodland was silent, but alive with hidden tension. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig set Sophie's nerves on edge. Bill led cautiously, his flashlight beam cutting sharply through the oppressive darkness. Sophie followed closely, her heart pounding in her ears, her mind replaying Alfred's desperate words over and over. They moved steadily through the tangled underbrush, breathing heavily from urgency and fear. Sophie's mind was a blur, her thoughts chaotic, questioning everything she'd believed. Could Richard truly have masterminded this nightmare? A sudden noise, a muffled voice and rustling footsteps snapped Sophie's attention sharply ahead. Bill held up a hand, stopping abruptly. They stood frozen, listening intently. Then, unmistakably, Emma's soft whimper echoed through the trees. "Emma!" Sophie cried instinctively, her voice breaking the silence. Instantly, footsteps scrambled. Hastily ahead, panicked movement crashing through brush. Bill surged forward, Sophie close behind, racing desperately toward the source. They emerged suddenly into a small clearing beside the riverbank, illuminated dimly by moonlight. An old, weathered cabin stood silently in the shadows, partially concealed by thick vines and towering trees. A figure moved quickly, attempting to escape toward the dense foliage. Alfred, gripping Emma tightly by her wrist, urgency etched clearly on his elderly face. "Stop!" Bill commanded sharply, his voice firm but controlled. Alfred froze instantly, eyes wide with fear and desperation. "Please listen. You don't understand, Emma." Sophie cried again, heart lurching painfully as her daughter twisted to see her, eyes bright with recognition and relief. "Mummy," Emma called, reaching toward Sophie instinctively. "Let her go, Alfred." Sophie pleaded fiercely, stepping forward cautiously. "Please don't hurt her." "I'd never hurt her," Alfred protested desperately, eyes pleading, voice trembling. "Sophie, please listen. I'm protecting her, I swear to you." Bill advanced carefully, flashlight steady, voice calm yet authoritative. "Alfred, release Emma now. Whatever happened, we can discuss it rationally." "No." Alfred's voice cracked painfully, his frail body shaking. "You don't understand. He'll find us. We can't stay here." Sophie moved closer, trembling slightly. "Who will find you?" "Alfred, tell me." Alfred hesitated, eyes darting fearfully around the shadows, before finally releasing Emma's hand slowly. Emma immediately ran to Sophie, collapsing into her mother's protective embrace, trembling. "Mummy," Alfred was trying to help. Emma whispered urgently, eyes filled with tears. "He didn't hurt me. He's scared too. Sophie's heart twisted painfully, confusion overwhelming her. She stared intently at Alfred, desperate for answers. Explain now, Alfred. Please, we deserve the truth. Alfred sighed deeply, his posture sagging, eyes weary and filled with guilt. It's Richard, your ex-husband, Emma's father. He set everything up. He paid someone to take Emma initially, knowing your fears, your anxieties would torture you endlessly. He contacted me weeks ago, threatened to frame me if I didn't cooperate again, but I refused. I couldn't let him harm her. Shock rippled through Sophie like electricity, memories flooding back, the manipulative charm, hidden threats masked as kindness, subtle control that had nearly destroyed her. It all made horrific sense. No, she whispered brokenly, realization striking painfully. Richard wouldn't. He couldn't. He did. Alfred insisted firmly, eyes begging her to understand. Richard wants revenge, Sophie. For leaving him, for taking away his control. Hurting Emma was his ultimate punishment for you. I knew the only way to protect her was to hide until I could prove his guilt. Bill stepped forward urgently, voice tense. Do you have proof? Yes, Alfred admitted quickly, eyes filled with hope and desperation. Inside the cabin, hidden beneath floorboards letters, Richard wrote payment records, threats, everything needed to expose him. Bill rushed immediately inside the cabin, leaving Sophie holding Emma tightly, eyes filled with tears of relief and betrayal. I'm sorry I frightened you, Alfred whispered gently, voice trembling with remorse. But I couldn't risk losing Emma, not again. Sophie stared at the elderly man, gratitude and sadness mingling inside her chest. Thank you for protecting her, she whispered softly, gently taking Alfred's frail hand. I'm sorry I doubted you. Alfred smiled weakly, eyes glistening, faintly with tears. Just keep her safe. Richard won't stop. He's desperate, dangerous. Moments later, Bill emerged from the cabin, holding several documents tightly. It's true. Alfred was telling the truth. These prove Richard orchestrated everything from the beginning. We have him. Sophie exhaled shakily, overwhelming relief mixing with raw anguish. Emma clung tightly to her, breathing softly, finally safe in her mother's embrace. Sophie pressed her lips softly against her daughter's forehead, whispering quiet reassurances, but as relief flooded the clearing, suddenly the forest grew impossibly silent. A heavy, oppressive quiet settled rapidly over them, unnatural and deeply unsettling. Alfred froze immediately, eyes wide with fresh terror. He found us, Alfred breathed, voice barely audible. Before anyone could react, Richard emerged swiftly from the shadows, gun in hand, eyes wild with desperation and rage. His breathing was ragged, expression twisted frighteningly, unhinged. Did you really think you'd win this easily, Sophie? Richard's voice dripped venom, eyes narrowing dangerously. You destroyed my life. Did you really think I'd let you escape punishment? Sophie stood protectively in front of Emma, heart pounding violently. Richard, please, she pleaded desperately. This isn't the way. Let Emma go. She's innocent. No one's innocent, Richard spat coldly, stepping closer, weapon steady in his shaking hands. Not you, not Alfred, certainly not this meddling old detective. You're all responsible. But you, Sophie, you took everything from me. Now, I'll take what matters most from you. Emma whimpered softly behind Sophie, terrified. Alfred stepped protectively forward, despite frailty. Bill tensed beside her, calmly measuring distances, searching for any advantage. Sophie stared defiantly into Richard's eyes, resolve hardening her voice. I won't let you hurt her, Richard. Not again. Richard smiled bitterly, eyes glinting. Cruelly. You can't stop me, Sophie. It's too late for forgiveness, too late for redemption. His finger tightened ominously around the trigger, darkness descending swiftly over the clearing, suffocating and deadly. Sophie stood frozen, prepared to shield her daughter at any cost, knowing the confrontation looming would shatter her world permanently. Whatever the outcome, as the moon disappeared behind thick clouds, plunging the forest into deeper darkness, Sophie realized the fight for Emma's safety wasn't over yet. The truth had been unveiled, but now survival hung by a thread, suspended in this perilous, final confrontation on the banks of the River Derwent. The dark banks of the River Derwent grew tense, as if the night itself had frozen, anticipating the violence about to erupt. Richard stood before Sophie, his hand trembling yet determined as he aimed the gun directly toward her chest. His eyes burned with an unrelenting hatred, fueled by years of obsessive resentment. "You really thought you could just leave me behind, Sophie?" Richard's voice cracked, a chilling blend of pain and fury. "You think you could take Emma and erase me from your lives?" Sophie held Emma tightly behind her, her breath ragged, pulse hammering in her ears. Beside her, Bill stood rigid, his eyes tracking every movement, desperately seeking a chance to intervene safely. It didn't have to be this way, Sophie pleaded softly, trying to steady her shaking voice. "Richard, please, put down the gun. Don't let this define who you are." Richard laughed bitterly, harsh and unsettling. "Define who I am? You destroyed who I was. You took away my control, my life, my daughter. You forced me into this." In an instant, brief, haunting memories flooded Sophie's mind, the early days with Richard's effortless charm, swiftly overshadowed by subtle manipulations. Isolated from friends and family, Sophie had endured emotional torment hidden beneath Richard's smiling facade. The arrival of Emma had intensified his control, turning Sophie's world into a silent prison until she'd finally gathered strength to leave. Richard's revenge had been carefully crafted, using Emma, their innocent daughter, as a pawn to punish Sophie. Emma shifted suddenly, bravely stepping from behind her mother. Sophie's heart leaped into her throat, horrified at the risk. But Emma stood firm, voice clear despite trembling hands clutching Mr. Green tightly. "Daddy." Emma spoke softly, eyes wide yet steady. "I don't want you to hurt Mummy. Please." Richard faltered momentarily, the gun wavering slightly as emotion flickered in his gaze. "Emma, this isn't about hurting you," he muttered, voice strained. Emma stepped slightly closer, her small frame radiating unexpected courage. "But you are hurting me, Daddy. You've hurt Mummy. You've scared us. Can't we just go home?" Richard's expression darkened abruptly, his finger tightening again. "No, it's too late for that." Bill saw the moment of hesitation and acted. Swiftly, lunging forward, he threw himself at Richard, grasping desperately for the gun. Sophie pulled Emma back, heart pounding wildly as the two men grappled fiercely near the slippery riverbank. The struggle intensified, Bill's age and exhaustion evident, but his determination overwhelming. Richard fought viciously, throwing punches blindly, desperate to regain control. Suddenly, a shot rang out, echoing sharply across the river. Sophie screamed, terror gripping her chest, unsure who'd been struck. Both men froze briefly, breathing heavily. Bill stood shakily, blood seeping slowly from a wound in his shoulder. Richard stumbled backward, momentarily stunned by the chaos. His grip on the gun loosened slightly, but he quickly regained himself, stepping closer, weapon still dangerously raised. "You won't win this." Richard spat furiously, glaring venomously at Bill. "She's mine, both of them. You'll never change that." With newfound strength, Bill lunged again, using every ounce of determination left inside him. The fight became frantic, desperate, each man grasping at survival and control. Sophie shielded Emma, feeling utterly helpless as her protector fought bravely for their lives. Flashing police lights break through the trees just as Bill wrestles Richard, knocking the gun into the river. Officers flood the clearing, subduing Richard, his last glare at Sophie dripping with rage and defeat. Bill, wounded but alive, is tended by medics while Sophie thanks him tearfully for saving them. Alfred, proved innocent, apologizes and receives Sophie's and Emma's heartfelt gratitude. At dawn, mother and daughter finally embrace in relief. Months later, their Bristol home is filled with laughter again. Sophie's art now captures joyful moments, and Bill, having found redemption quietly, keeps Emma's green teddy bear as a solemn reminder of courage and second chances.